All right, real quick, let me do welcome everybody. And my name's Vincent Medley, the Maddie's Director of Human Animal Support Services and the Human Animal Support Services Project. Before we get started with our tonight's webinar on creating community connections, let me give you, I'm going to read verbatim what some of the housekeeping items that I have on my list. Keep in mind that we are in Zoom, and when you're in Zoom or in our webinar, please use the Q&A option at the bottom next to the chat option. Use the Q&A to submit any questions that for the panelists to ensure we see your question. So please don't use the chat. If you have a question, just tap that Q&A that's at the bottom of the bar in your Zoom menu. Also, please use chat to engage throughout the presentation. We ask that you stay on topic in the chat. In order to chat with each other, please use the drop down in your chat box and switch it to everyone. So make sure you have that everyone click, because if you do just the panelists, which happens from time to time, only we will get it. So read that tab to make sure you are not sending it directly to just the panel. Also, please stay tuned to fill out a brief poll at the very end of the webinar. And lastly, a recording of this webinar will be distributed within 3 days to the email you registered with. If you do not see it in your email after 3 days, be sure to check your spam or visit humananimalsupportservices.org. All right. So without further ado, hello from Detroit, Michigan, Dana. That's my hometown. All right. So before we get started tonight and I introduce my panelists, I have a real quick question for the community that's gathered here today. Please give us a one-word description of what the word community means to you, and place it in the chat. We'd love to see it. All right, we're getting some good ones in, or we're getting some ones in. I guess we can't call them good, but yeah. Collaboration, I see. Connecting, mutual support, I saw. I think united is another one. All right. And this is going to be really useful for our panel so that they can craft some of their answers to what they see in the chat based on what you believe community is, because this is really important that we know what your thoughts are on that. All right. So now let me introduce tonight's topic, which is creating connections, how to build a partnership between animal and human organizations. Tonight, we will have the opportunity to speak to 3 people that I know relatively well. 2 I know very well. This is an incredible panel of experts, Diaz Dixon, Nichole Hazard, and Kaitlyn Thomas. They all will introduce themselves and give you their background. So I'm going to invite the panel to do that now, and we will start with you, Nichole.
Thanks, Vincent. Hi, everyone. My name is Nichole Hazard, and I am the Associate Director of Marketing and Communications for the Haas Project. I'm located here in Austin, and I'm so thankful to be here. Over to you, Diaz.
All right. I'll take the baton. My name is Diaz Dixon. I am the Maddie's advisor for the Haas Project, as well for collaborations and partnerships. And my background is heavily in the social service world. I'll hand it off to you, Kaitlyn.
All right. Hello, friends. My name is Kaitlyn Thomas, and I am in Baltimore City, or Charm City. I work with BARCS Animal Shelter, and I am their Keeping Pets with Families coordinator.
So let me ask you, I have a follow-up question for all of you. Give the community gathered here a little bit of your background and how this this topic and this really relates to the work that you're doing in the world, who you are as a human being, the whole spiel. We will start with Kaitlyn. Let's start with you, Kaitlyn.
Sure. So where to start, really? I grew up loving animals. I was basically on a farm. So I grew up with a lot of dogs. When I got out of school, I started working at an animal shelter. It was basically my first job, coordinating a foster program. And I did that for a very long time. But we'll talk about this, but it all starts with really one person, right? I was introduced to an amazing woman named Annie, who started Charm City Companions here in Baltimore City, which is likened to Pets for Life, but very much tailored towards Baltimore City. Got to know more about Baltimore City and the community and this type of work. And I was like, wow, I'm a people person. For so long, I thought I was an animal person, but I realized that I love people so much. I love community so much, and it feels so good. And my passion really lies in social justice, but my avenue is through the dog door. And that's the short of it.
Yeah, nice. That's excellent. Thank you so much. And Diaz, well, you can go next.
All right. I was born and raised in Vegas. And so I live in Reno now, but I was raised in the projects. Very much the entertainment for the weekend was walking over 40 yards to the tennis courts to watch the dog fights. And that was a sense of excitement, and it was fun. And it wasn't until later that I realized that I'm a product of my own experiences in my environment. And when you shift and get out of that and you start seeing that there are other ways to do things. My first job when I was 13 was working at an animal hospital, and it really started just transforming who I was. I moved on. Most of my career has been in building social service programs. I ran a substance use treatment program for women and children, as well as built a homeless youth shelter in Reno. And I was the CEO of the Nevada Humane Society. So putting all those things together, recognizing that we're a product of our experiences environment, it's important for us to be able to step outside that bubble of what those experiences are in your environment. And so, like Kaitlyn was saying, the social justice piece is heavy in my heart, and I'm always pushing on it and always pushing the envelope to how we stretch ourselves.
And I hear tell that you built that with your own two hands, Diaz. Any truth to that?
Yes, Vincent.
All right, Nichole, next.
Sure. I am originally from Houston and have been a Texas girl my whole life. And I come from a very large and in charge Puerto Rican family where community is everything. And while my upbringing has been focused primarily on, taking care of your fellow neighbor, it has transmitted into my professional life as well. I've really been lucky in that my professional career has taken me in a variety of industries, both nonprofit and for-profit, and having the ability to be able to build connections that make the world a better place is really what I feel like my purpose on this earth is. And people who know me really well know that my three favorite things are people, pups, and the planet, which I realize kind of encompasses everything, but that's my fun way of saying that these are where my passion points are. And I feel so grateful to be able to be a part of a project that is really rooted in uniting, the best practices of human welfare and the best practices of animal welfare to take care of everybody. So I feel really grateful to be able to do that every day.
All right. Thank you all. And as you all can see that we have such experienced and passionate people on this panel. Let's start with you, Kaitlyn, because I actually got an opportunity to see your work up close and personal recently on Haas's visit, and myself and Nichole, when Haas visited Baltimore. You have a program called Keeping Pets with Families, and it's done you've been able to accomplish some incredible things and do some incredible work. Share with a little bit more about the programs and the partnerships you built, and do you have any specific examples of how this program has positively impacted people, both people and pets in your community?
Yes, I could go on for days about that. But really what this program is about is external outreach. So really stepping out of the shelter and getting to the root of the problems and challenges that folks face that do cause this intake, right? A little bit of, there's so many people here, it's so exciting, but a little bit more perspective. So again, I'm in Baltimore City. Our population here is about 600,000, and our poverty rate is about 23%, which is 150,000 people living under the poverty level. BARCS is the biggest open admission shelter in Maryland. We take in over 12,000 animals a year. And that's with exotics as well, so cats, dogs, and exotics. So really, this program launched during the pandemic, and I was so blessed to see the opening and be able to step in and work with BARCS to, really extend our reach out into the community. So, really what this was about in the beginning is getting to know our neighborhoods and figuring out where we needed to be. And so once we mapped that out, which again, like I have been working in Baltimore City for, 8 years. So I really already had an idea of where I wanted to be and where I wanted to go, but it was important to then, take that and look at BARCS intake statistics and data and, use both of those to hit the areas of the highest need to begin with. And then once I did that, really, I just had to get out into the community and embed as deeply as possible, get to know folks and talk, really just talk about the things that are going on in their homes and with their pets. So I drove around and decided to just figure out where the people are, and then talk to the people about what their needs are. So we do a lot as far as medical care, but we also do just general resource events. We do food pantries. We do big clinics with, medical care, pop-ups, and lots of opportunities just to engage in like a very fun way. This is, about building and repairing relationships with the animal shelters and expanding the knowledge as far as why animals are coming into the shelter, promoting adoption, and then doing whatever it takes to keep pets with families, and including working with our animal control, because we are in the same building as animal control, and we do get the animals that animal control brings in. So working closely with them to reduce the amount of animals that they bring to the shelter. And then what's the next part of the question?
Just give us some specific examples of
how,
of how the program has positively impacted people and their pets in the community. And what I also would like to hear from you is like some of your work in terms of the contacts you made that really got you started in the community, like to help build that
trust. I would love to start with that. Yeah, I would love to start with that. So when I first got started, I, really was deeply involved or invested in the neighborhood surrounding BARCS Animal Shelter. It is a big area of need. It is mostly public housing, and it is completely cut off from the rest of the city. I had no familiarity with Cherry Hill, but I did have, just the car with the magnet and the, personality to go out and make friends. So I decided, instead of sending emails and calling and Googling, I just drove around and met a few people. It's really like being out there. I'm looking to build curiosity first, right? So, who's that girl? What's this thing? What's going on? And that's really the conversation starter, the way in the door. Made a couple friends and basically asked, like, where do things happen around here? Where do you get resources? And, the first thing was the school. Here in Baltimore City, there's a program called Elevate, and it's community schooling. And the idea, and this really started in the past couple of years, is that schools should be the resource hubs. So, any resource needed in the community should be accessible through the school. And so they were having pop-up food pantries once a week. So I just went And I was like, hey, who's like in charge here? Who's coordinating this? And I met a lovely man named George Bunton, who was the coordinator at Cherry Hill Elementary. And I was like, can I join you guys? Like, can I just hang out? So for the first food pantry, and he was like, absolutely. I just hung out. And then he said, you want to come back every week? And I was like, absolutely. So I came back the next week, set up a table, you know, did some pet tags and just talked to people. I probably made at least 10 friends the first time I went out there. And everyone was so excited about it. It was like, you know, the momentum was building. There was this new thing, and, you know, so many folks have pets in the neighborhood, and this has never been, you know, accessible to them before. So people really, really came out, which was amazing, because folks who came out with their pets weren't necessarily going to come in the first place for the food. So they were able to also get the food and talk to the other resource providers there, and vice versa. So George, you know, after a couple of times, he wanted to introduce me to all of his friends, including the school coordinator, the other school coordinators in Cherry Hill and outside of Cherry Hill, the pastor at the church. So anyone that was doing anything, he wanted to introduce me to. And something, you know, that I found is there are so many small organizations within the communities that we want to be in that are already doing so much work. And there's so many residents doing the same, right? But, you know, they just don't get as much credit. They're small, and, you know, BARCS Animal Shelter is huge. Everyone knows about BARCS, you know, in Maryland. So something really cool I found was like being able to connect with these folks, like, and bringing, you know, our voice into this. We're really able to have a much greater reach than, unfortunately, small community organizations. So I really find that this way of doing things, just meeting one person and then that person introducing you to, you know, all of their friends, and then their friends. And when I say friends, I mean people in all different types of service organizations and doing service in their community. So from there, you know, again, George introduced me to the other school coordinators. We started doing different events together. We, you know, we're talking about creative ways to engage with the community at, you know, all the different locations. So the schools, the churches. And at that point, like, it kind of just kicked off. So they had, you know, at their food pantries, they also had Maryland Legal Aid there, and Baltimore Gas and Electric, and, you know, the banks opening up accounts. They had job training and employment opportunities there. So it was really inspiring to see all these resources being mobilized. And it's something that is happening in Baltimore, in lots of neighborhoods in Baltimore. So being able to then just like fluidly connect with those other neighborhoods came out of that. So it was super easy, super duper easy.
And so it's very interesting to me, because what it sounds like you did is plugged into the already existing resources instead of deciding that you knew best and you were going to just go in the community and show them how to be active in their own community.
Right. That's just not how that works. You know, we're saying this a lot often, but work smarter, not harder. Like, just, you know, practically, it makes more sense. You're going to be able to spread the news and your programs and your services and the things you want to do much quicker that way. But also, you know, for me and those who have mentored me, like, this work is about co-creating, right? We're building a completely new world together, right? We're, like Nichole said, like, we can make the world a better place through this work. And I found that, like, you know, through the dog door, we're able to really get in there and get to know families and their needs. And there's so many, right? There are so many needs. So through these partnerships, we're able to address all of those needs as one. And really, like, community is connection. And together, like, we're going to be able to solve these problems, right? If we work together, then we're closer to solving the problems that we see, you know, all these folks are facing. And, you know, obviously the pet The pet part of it is something everyone can relate to. I mean, okay, there's few people in this world that are like, I hate animals, right? So it's just a common ground.
Nice. Thank you. And we are going to come back to you because I want you when we circle back to you to talk about some of the joy that you've seen. Because just so everybody knows, Cherry Hill, if you look at it from the outside as the stereotype of what the media would tell you, is a really bad, high crime, poverty area. And here's Kaitlyn, who doesn't know anybody, driving around in that area, and just decides that she's going to talk to people, and that's how she made friends. And which is, if you listen to the outside noise, a lot of times will tell you that's an easy way for you to get, be the victim of a crime. And as you can see, example one with Kaitlyn, that's not true. But yeah, so just talk to us, I guess, when we circle back about just some of think of a few stories about, how much joy you saw in pet ownership in the areas where you provide or you are partnered with the community, and then also, how the community has really created their own pet support services, and you've been able to plug into. Now, you used a very key word, and I'm going to toss it over to Nichole because you said community is connection. Well, it just so happens that the Human Animal Support Services Project has a program that really resonates with that. And I'm going to let Nichole tell us a little bit more about the Human Animal Support Services Community Connections Project and the types of partnerships it's fostering between animal organizations and human organizations.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think honestly, Kaitlyn put it in such a beautiful way that we recognized as a team upon working with our pilot shelters and as active members in our own really unique communities that there is a need, and it's actually one need, and that is the ability to unite again what we can learn from the human welfare organizations within our local communities. How can we apply those best practices and partnerships to better serve both people and pets equally, and ultimately be able to keep families together, ensure that everyone is taken care of, while recognizing, of course, that every community is unique. And so they're going to have different needs and different opportunities to foster those relationships and really be able to serve that many more people. So the Community Connections Project specific to Haas, the main goal was really to build a framework for our pilot shelters, BARCS, of course, being one of them, to have connections between the human organizations or other nonprofits in their local community to then also serve their shelter and the animals within it. And really the process of that is by identifying existing or really well-established local community initiatives, as Kaitlyn was mentioning, the small but mighty team of people who are already actively engaged in better serving their community. If we can build that bridge between an animal shelter to those incredible individuals, we want to be able to do that. And so through the community connections process, we've been able through some of our pilot shelters to really just do gap analysis for them, allow us to take a look at what's existing in their communities, and also what the specific needs are and the existing helpers that are within those communities, both really small nonprofits as well as larger ones. We then also just try to build relationships, as silly as and basic as that may sound, but it goes back to Kaitlyn's earlier point, which is if you can extend an open hand and a smiling face and just ask the question of what you need and find that like-mindedness between people you wouldn't otherwise know. The truth is we have a lot more connection and in common than you may seem. And so upon building those relationships, we've been able to really just provide introductions where appropriate, and also, take a look at the data and see where these gaps are and how we can utilize these relationships to bridge those gaps. And then lastly, the Haas team really just takes a look at that holistically and really tries to set up our pilot shelters for success, to continue those relationships, to continue identifying areas where all of these parties can work together to solve these common problems. And so far we've been able to build relationships that didn't otherwise exist, and really just see the part that I feel most rewarded seeing is just the relief that comes from uniting these individuals with a common goal, because so often they can feel a little bit alone, or like they're really climbing up that hill. And that relief and that connection that comes from building relationships like this is truly the biggest reward. So we're definitely going to continue the Haas Community Connections Project, because we really believe that it's the way forward to be able to just take care of one another.
Wow. And thank you, Nichole. And notice so far, we have not talked much at all about pets, and which leads me to, not that we don't love them, because I got a bunch in my house, but
we always say here that pet problems are people problems. So we might as well, solve them together to keep them together. That's my motto, at least.
So that leads me to somebody who really, when I first met them, they really he hammered it home to me that, boy, y'all just continue to gravitate back towards animals. Every time I try to talk about people, you turn it back into an animal. So Diaz, I wanted to talk to us, and you can definitely address that, but also talk to us a little bit about why being somebody who's worked in a lot of human-oriented organizations and also animal welfare, why is it important for these two industries to come together and find opportunities to collaborate?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Vincent, because I think it is a tendency for all of us, depending on what world we live in, to gravitate towards that, stay in that, and sometimes not see the importance of the impact that we're having outside our own world, as well as what kind of impact can we have from others outside. And it is the toughest part that most industries have is the ability to listen to others, which means, and listen and silent have all the same letters, being silent enough to take the information in as to how someone else can be of benefit to you. And it's so important to me. It was great. Nichole touched on it heavily. She was talking about holism and bridging gaps. And oftentimes when we're looking for solutions, we don't look beyond our own walls because we're so overwhelmed with the stresses that we have that's sitting in front of us. And when we're moving animals out of shelter really fast, we think that that's success, but really that's transactional. And we need to be more transformational. So now when we're moving animals out, why are we moving them out? Where are they going? And what's the impact that they're having? If we know that 70% of Americans right now are struggling with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, 70%. We also know that close to that number of people have pets in some way. There's oftentimes it's that bond that's helping them actually get through those toughest moments. And
wait. Let me stop you real quick, Diaz. You mean that somebody going through a stressful situation doesn't need us to jump in and snatch the animal from them so that they can get themselves together to prepare themselves to have a pet? Is that what you're saying?
You are listening. You're doing a great job at listening, Vincent, because again, if I fall back to our own biases that we all have bias. And oftentimes it has been shaped and formed by what we think is right and what we see, and we stand on our truths, but it does not, that unintentional bias does not pay attention to what someone else's truth might be, what someone else's relationship might be with their pets. So we think being a really good pet owner means you must have 5,000 square feet in your backyard and a 6-foot fence. Otherwise, you're not deserving to have a pet. And until we can start looking and seeing, maybe there are a lot of people in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods. Maybe there's some marginalized communities, people who would do really good in having a pet and continuing to have some education about being a good pet, being a good companion to that pet, what that means. But I'm going to back up for a second.
Yeah.
We got to get away from our own bias about what a good pet owner is. And if we can take the opportunity to bridge the gaps that we have, as Nichole was talking about, and we lead with values and use values as a gap, now we're going to understand why bridging the gaps of these two different worlds protect vulnerable populations. We have people who are in domestic violence situations, and they won't leave because they don't want to leave loving Fluffy. That's why they stay in this particular situation. So how can we be of support? And maybe it's not for us to come in and say you're wrong, or you're messing this up, or the dog's going to get hurt. It's to say, how can we be of support? What programming do we have in our walls that lends support to those agencies to give that pet a safe place in that time, to be able to give that companion animal a safe place? We might also have individuals who need some additional emotional support. Maybe they're of the elderly population, but it's by working together, social services and animal welfare organizations can ensure that the companion animals are cared for, and we can reduce barriers for people to access social services, being able to simply get to them. Housing is one that's huge, that we all know that we deal with, but we got to be very careful because we oftentimes come at it with a very judgmental perspective. And it's based off of our own experiences that we've had. So as I jump into that, it's really easy for us to fall back to what we're comfortable with, and that might be the animal side. But we got to be very cognizant of promoting a holistic support for the community's well-being. And then I'll the last part that I'll go on, because you know that I can get on my soapbox and talk probably a little bit too long.
No, you're good.
There has to be a huge focus from social services, the social service side, as well as animal welfare, on education and outreach. It has to happen from both sides. You know, when I ran Step 2, I ran a substance use treatment facility for women and children for 14 years. There were 25 cottages on that campus, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom cottages that women live in when they reunify with their kids, helping them stay clean and sober. I did not allow them to have pets. And here I was loving my dog every time I came home. And it wasn't until later I opened up my eyes from that perspective. And what if I said, nope, you can't bring your kids into this program? I was not doing a service. So we have to open our eyes on all sides. And how do we do that? Still in Nichole's words again, by bridging gaps and doing so with values.
Yeah, that's thank you so much, and please, by all means, stay on your soapbox. It's definitely something that the community wants to hear. And so let's circle back, because you gave me an entry point back to Kaitlyn. So Kaitlyn, back to the question that I had for you before. Talk to us, because Diaz talked about making that connection between the emotional well-being and the connection with the family when it comes to pets. Talk to us about what you've seen, about, especially to inform people about breaking the stereotype of people saying, well, if you're in a certain condition or a certain living, or you make a certain amount of money, that you should not have a pet. Talk to us about the joy you've seen in the community, just based on the bond between human and their pets.
Yeah. So, goodness, I mean, it makes a whole world of difference. Again, like, I feel like, imagine a world where our biggest problems were our biggest opportunities. And, imagine a world where the love we share for our pets really is the key to addressing those problems in a way that is comfortable for everyone, right? Because I believe that when we get together to celebrate our pets, we automatically have a safe space for folks to be in, an inclusive space for folks to be in. So, I mean, I see it every single day. I see the joy. I see the, in bringing folks together from both sides and, really sharing in those life experiences. But on an individual level, I mean, a large percentage of the folks that I meet have rescued their animals. So like, first and foremost, like this isn't a thing where people are like, I bought a dog and now I don't want this dog and now I'm going to get another dog. Like, no, this is, we have a housing problem. And I did want to talk about housing. But, so my neighbor was evicted and, the dog was left behind because they had to get out of here, or, there's a litter of kittens in the back alley. Don't know where they came from. My son got incarcerated. Now I have his 3 dogs. But we do see that so often that, there are so many rescuers in the community, and because resources haven't been available, they've been doing this themselves. And supporting those folks, finding those folks is super powerful, right? Because they're already leaders. We like to call them community connectors. But there are already leaders in the communities that we're working in who are really the animal caretakers, who are the neighborhood animal caretakers, maybe community cats, or maybe just like, hey, dog guy down the street, he'll know what to do about, your dog's mange, or, so really pointing out those folks and working with them. It gives them a lot of joy because they are passionate about pets and their neighbors and helping their neighborhood. And it also really alleviates a lot. I mean, this community connector program is the only way that we've been able to spread out. I mean, if it were to just be me, one staff member, and some volunteers, like we could only do so much, you know what I mean? But if we're able to meet the folks and point out the folks that are already doing so much in their neighborhoods and really just give them the tools and, really just the push and, being able to say, hey, we have your back, but keep doing what you're doing. And what can we do to help you keep doing what you're doing? I find that gives people so much joy. I think we talked before about the volunteer that was recruited at a clinic. He had come at the very end of the clinic, the vet was gone. He had rescued this puppy with mange, and it really needed medical care, and he thought he was going to be able to get it that day, but unfortunately we had to shut down. Long story short, we ended up building a relationship after that. And we were able to get some, vet attention for the dog. But once we really got into conversation, it was really clear that he was an advocate and caretaker within his community and was really passionate about animals. He knew everybody on the block, or, the 5-block radius who had dogs, and he wanted to help out. So, a lot of our volunteers come from the communities we're working in. I mean, that makes the most sense, right? But, so he was like, I have all these ideas, can we do an event together? I'll do the work. I'll get the word out, I'll get folks to come. And I was like, I would love that. And months go by and he was volunteering at different events that we had and getting to know us. And, he kept pushing that we need to do an event. My neighborhood needs an event. So I was like, okay, well, right now we're pretty busy, but, if you can go find the community association and talk to the, members and say, you want to do this event, we need, a spot to do it at. Baltimore City started cracking down on permits, which we've never had to deal with. So I was like, find out if we need a permit. So he joined the community association, met the, the leader of the community association, who was super duper excited about this also, and was like, I want to do an event. And she was like, yeah, we can use the park. And just, we can use the park, make a flyer, we'll get it out there. So great. We made the flyer, and honestly, he did all of the work, right? He recruited volunteers. he was there day of, but not only that, he did all the work on the back end. We had a warehouse of food, and we were able to get some of that big bags of food over to another community association that we work directly with, and they bagged up 200 bags of food and litter. And James went and picked it all up, brought it to the event. He brought teens, community service volunteers, to work the tables, and the community association came out. They volunteered at the event. I basically showed up, we showed up, and I was able to actually microchip. I didn't even have to do anything really at the event as the coordinator. He did, and our other volunteers really just took the leadership role in that. It was so easy and amazing. And, Vincent, earlier you mentioned really we're just trying to get the resources out there so folks can do this in their communities themselves. And wow, that was so magical. Like, it happened. Lots of people showed up. And again, I didn't really have to do any work except come there and celebrate with them. So that was a partnership, and it was our first fully community run event. And I think it just felt so good for everybody. The woman from the community association across the street came over, was like, I love this so much. How can we engage further? She was like, I'll do a food pantry at the community association. So, once one person that you find who has a passion gets involved and, is really a member of the team, it's amazing what can be done. Do you have any questions about that? Because I also want to talk about housing.
Okay, so we have about 10 audience questions from the audience. And we will squeeze in housing. Now, in order for us to do that, as we read through these questions, panelists, keep in mind that just to be a laser in your answers. And I know with the understanding that some answers may take a little bit longer to explain than others. All right, so we have one from Johanna Johnson, Weinberg, for pet, and I think this is for you, Kaitlyn. For the pet retention, do you serve/focus both on housed and unhoused?
So, yes. I would say so many people are unhoused. It's really hard to tell. I was looking at some statistics, and it said that in 1 year, the past year, 5,300 people were at some point homeless in Baltimore City. Now, I think that number is really, really low. And in reality, it's a lot more because, folks are staying with friends or family or neighbors, things like that. So many people are suffering from, not having a home of their own. So yes, I would say yes, we do. Now, as far as unhoused population, we do have some areas in Baltimore City where there are tents, and some folks do have dogs, and animal control will call me up and be like, there's a man under the bridge who just needs some dog food, and I'll give the dog food to animal control and they'll go, drop it off. But for the most part, we're just working with the folks in the neighborhood who need it.
But if somebody that was housed all of a sudden became unhoused, I'm sure you would still.
Yeah, we'd be keeping that relationship. And then we'd also be having those conversations about what is going on, what can we also do to support you? We have a lot of connections. Springboard Family and Children's Services, will do referrals for us. We work with groups that do job training, employment. So really, that's also an opportunity. Again, it's a problem, but it's an opportunity to, support that family fully. And talking to landlords, I mean, again, I wanted to talk about housing, but I feel like that would take way too long, honestly. But housing is so fragmented here that, as again, these animal people, BARCS Animal Shelter, when we're having these conversations with our housing associations and, what's going on here as far as pets are concerned, we're also learning there are these barriers to pet ownership, or there's so much unknown between private landlords and public housing. And there's a lot of public housing here in Baltimore City. But, if we have a client who lives in one of these neighborhoods and they're about to lose their pet, like, we will help them in any way possible, whether it be calling that landlord and being like, what's the problem? What do they need? Can we work with you on getting a letter that says, this person does very much benefit mentally and physically, emotionally from having this pet. So, we want to really follow through, and we have a lot of volunteers. This isn't just me getting on the phone and calling people. We have a lot of volunteers who are supporting one-on-one any client that comes into our house.
Sweet. All right, and you're getting some love in the chat. Next question is from Bob Tubbs. He wanted to know the panel's opinion on several community projects like Anna Mills, Project Street Vet, Pet Prisoner Project, and I will start with you, Diaz. What are your opinions about of these programs and other programs like it?
Well, I like them because they're outside the norm. I know when I was at Nevada Humane Society, at one point in time, we had 12 cats that were terminal. We sent them off to the prison. Part of my staff was really upset, sending these cats to jail. Said, look, they're in a small kennel right now. At least they'll be in a large cell with someone who's loving on them. Within 3 months, 9 of the 12 cats showed no signs of their terminal illness and were no longer on medication. Our staff then said, this is fantastic. We're going to get them back so we can adopt them out. And I said, no. They found their loved person. And if this did this for that cat, imagine what it's doing for that human being. So I think that they're really good. We have to just stop thinking outside of the transactional pieces and make sure that we stay transformational. I'll just stop at that to allow the other panelists to.
Well, and just real quick before you stop, this will get a quick opportunity for you to talk a little bit about your Pets, People, and Purpose podcast and something that,
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the shameless plug there, Vincent. So for those of you guys who have not tuned in to People, Pets, and Purpose, it's about animal kindness and human kindness and how we bring these worlds together. And, I've got Nichole Hazard, Sarah and Aaron. I've got a super team that put things together. We actually had a phenomenal episode that's coming up, and it's with Meals on Wheels National. And talking to on the national level about how we can pull in and be a part of continuing to support over 400 programs across the country, but people who have trouble with transportation, people who are older, but they have their pets, their loved ones. And Meals on Wheels has noticed and recognized that they're not animal experts. So they're reaching out saying, well, what can we learn from Haas? And so those conversations are happening right now. It's truly inspirational. I get super excited about all of that, but tune in and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Nichole, did you want to elaborate on that a little bit, or did you have anything to say?
I'll always elaborate on Diaz's podcast hosting skills. No, I'm just kidding. I think that the best part about some of these programs, to Bob's question, is we are working with some of the organizations mentioned. As Diaz just mentioned, we have the Haas Project has ongoing partnership and development with Meals on Wheels to be able to address the need for really ramping up the pet pantries and human pantries that are existing in these local communities. And I'm seeing in the chat the importance of having a customized approach as well, because we recognize that every community is unique, every community has unique needs. But to Kaitlyn's earlier point, the ongoing troubleshoot areas, especially as we're able to see through some of our other tools like Pets.Find Help, really are united in housing and healthcare. And so how do we give people access to some of these resources, and not with the goal of having a Band-Aid approach, but just trying to have progress to be able to support people in need. And so Meals on Wheels is one example, in addition to an ongoing partnership with an organization called Bestie B&B, we're looking to build those connections to directly serve communities that wouldn't otherwise have that support. And so far we've been able to do that through meeting the needs of individuals who are both housing and food insecure, and then also survivors of domestic violence. So it's an ongoing mission for sure, but I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. We have quite a few questions, but I have one for you, Kaitlyn. Kelly Green asks, can you talk a little bit more about the events you're doing with the community?
Sure. So I love a collaborative event. So no matter what services we're providing, I really appreciate when our partners work together with us. So I don't know, does she want to know about like clinics or just any events? Is there something in particular that will be more helpful?
She didn't elaborate, but just give
Okay.
a general idea of, yeah.
Sure. So so participation in like resource events, we're starting to host them collaboratively and together. So upcoming, Center for Urban Families and Children, one of my very best friends works there as a community outreach coordinator, and he is like me, just like meets so many people. So there's a great web there. So we decided, hey, like, approach food pantries. Like if you're looking to build partnerships, food pantries really are where it's at, because people need to eat, people need food. So you're going to have a lot of folks in that neighborhood coming, and then also you're going to have a lot of people there that you want to connect with. So we at Park Heights Academy, we're like, let's do our own event. Alongside of the food pantry, we'll have Maryland Legal Aid there, who can provide, legal advice or legal services. We'll have our job training and youth programs. And then we'll have a vet, and we'll do pet tags, and we'll do a flealess market, and we'll have housing there. So all together in the same room. Those are like amazing, my favorite events, because they're so fun and so collaborative. For our large scale events, we still make those collaborative. So we work a lot with housing. So if we're going to be going to any neighborhood, we want to figure out first, like, where's the biggest housing, development in this neighborhood? There's a lot of public housing developments in Baltimore City. So there's always a housing authority person there, or the community association leader there, who has a lot of obviously connections and partnerships. So hosting those events together, even when we're providing large scale medical care where we have multiple vets, we're providing, as much as possible, as close to a actual vet visit. Now we're still limited on time, and there's a lot of people and pets who need, but we really want to make this feel like, not like, hey, we're coming here, we're doing you a favor. Like, we want this to feel like a community event where, animals and people are getting all the care that can possibly be provided. So we do, vaccines, microchipping, tags. We always do a big flealess market because it's really fun. And we usually have hamburgers and hot dogs put on by, whoever collaborative partner we're working with. And, we invite them to bring any other resource providers in to the table. So whether it be, Safe Streets, which is violence reduction, hosting an event at the same time right next to ours. That's what we do. That we have fun.
All right. And I should have been prepared, but I'm answering the chat. Talk to us a little bit. There is a question about, and I'll open this up to Diaz to start off, that Johanna Weinberg said that she agreed with some of our earlier statements, and in an ideal world that those things would be true. But do you think we have a lot of work to do in animal welfare to create a safe place for people of color or other marginalized groups?
Fantastic question. And simply stated, yes, there's a lot of work to be done. I know when I first came into animal welfare, in the very first expo I went to, and I looked around and I was like, wow, I'm not sneaking out of the room without anyone knowing I left. What I would want us to take a look at, again, I'm going to fall back to implicit bias. It's important for us to kick our own tires as individuals. What are the biases that we carry? Because we don't think about that. And then take a look at the systems that we work in. Who are we reaching out to? Who are we talking to? Who are we having regular conversation with? And what I want you guys to think about is the system you work in isn't broken. It was built this way. So it needs to be dismantled and rebuilt with community in mind. And now, who's the leader of this particular community over here? Maybe we need to go talk to this preacher over here. When we start pulling in ambassadors that are trusted members of the different communities, now we're going to have people all on board and diving in and saying, well, teach me more, and how can I help? And how can I be a part of this? And that's when we're going to start seeing a big difference in our staffing and in the people who are coming in to adopt and people who are coming in to foster. That is a huge place. So yes, the answer is yes.
Long way to go. All right. Wow. Sadly, and you know I love this group. Sadly, we were not able to get to all of our questions, but I am going to make a commitment to make sure we get an answer to all of them. All of you, the 5 that were left. But we have to end now. I want to thank my panel for being here. You guys are fabulous. And it's such an honor to be working alongside you and working with you. Also, so thank you very much for being here tonight. And furthermore, if we didn't get to your question, please send your question to haas-project@animalamericanpetsalive.org. Also, there's going to be a pop-up here for a poll. If you will please take that poll. And as a reminder, tonight's webinar recording will be distributed within 3 days. Additionally, keep an eye in your inbox for details of upcoming webinars. Thank you for being here tonight. We are going to have that housing webinar, just so everybody knows. So that'll be early in 2024. So be on the lookout for that. You will most likely see Kaitlyn again. Yeah, it was so great having you all tonight. And thank you very much for being here. And have the rest of your evening. And make sure you give the kids great Halloween candy this year. Don't be cheap. All right. Have a good one, everybody.